Episode 488, Grave Digging. Once the ghost seize control of an organization, they use that power to make money and expand in other areas, Clark explained. They're already moving into genetic research, and the possibilities there are terrifying. There are rumors they're attempting to develop diseases that'll target only certain sections of the population. "That's awful," Debbie said, her eyes wide. "Imagine a world where the ghosts can intentionally infect any group who stands against them," Clark said, frowning. "Or even just any demographic they take a dislike to. They would have the power of life and death over all of us." He gestured around them. "This hospital seems perfectly normal," he said. "And yet one of their doctors was a ghost. Think about it. What if you were relying on such an institution for treatment and the ghost decided you should be eliminated? You wouldn't even see it coming." Everyone remained quiet as they considered the implications. The ghosts were everywhere, and they would all need to take precautions to protect themselves. Clark's fighting style was straightforward, but he was capable of complex thought, and he understood the sinister intentions of the ghosts. He was brave and resourceful, and he was determined to fight this insidious evil. "Obviously, we can't move against any of the organizations they've infiltrated unless we have evidence," Clark pointed out. "We're talking about well-respected institutions, after all. The ghosts are extremely skilled at remaining in the shadows, so we'll have to remain vigilant and wait for an opportunity to act." He sighed. "I have no idea what they're doing here, though," he said helplessly. "Perhaps Dr. Adams will be able to shed some light on that." "Mr. Fairfax, I can guess what they have planned," Alex said. "Oh?" Clark asked. "Yes, the ghosts are seeking to control you," Alex explained. "To be blunt, they intended to use you as a pawn, and then plan to get to you through your daughter. Sarah's life is hanging in the balance, and they'll keep her alive as long as you do what they say. No doubt they'll provide some secret medicine to cure her, but only if you become their creature." Clark thought about it, and then his expression grew hard. "That's despicable," he said. He looked at Alex. "You said you could wake Sarah. Was that true?" Alex nodded. "Of course," he said. "I just need to know if there's anything unusual about the cemetery you visited with her. And where was this?" Clark frowned. "Unusual?" he repeated. "What does this have to do with Sarah's illness?" "Sarah isn't ill," Alex said, smiling. "She's been exposed to some dark energy, which has disrupted her body's ability to function normally." "What?" Clark asked, more confused than ever. "Mr. Ambrose, please explain." "The cemetery contains energy from those buried within it," Alex said. "Sarah must be sensitive to such things, and when you walked through the graveyard, some of the darker energy latched onto her soul and kept it there." "Her soul?" Clark asked. "Her body is perfectly healthy," Alex said. "But without her soul, she's fading away and losing the ability to think. Once her mind is gone, she'll be trapped in a coma." He paused. "Mr. Fairfax, Sarah's problems are being caused by the loss of her soul." Clark was still struggling to understand. "Is that true?" he asked. "It sounds ridiculous. I've never heard of such a thing." He had no idea what to believe, and he was beginning to doubt Alex. The whole idea just sounded so preposterous. Has my daughter really lost her soul? He wondered. Now that I think about it, I do remember hearing stories about such things. Could there really be some truth to it? He clenched his fists as he tried to decide what to do. "Mr. Fairfax, what if he's right?" Debbie asked, smiling at him. "Why don't we go to the cemetery and check it out? Then we'll know for certain. What do you have to lose?" Debbie trusted Alex completely. So if Alex said Sarah had lost her soul, then that was what had happened. Clark sighed. Debbie was right. Sarah was extremely ill, so he had nothing to lose and everything to gain. He turned to his men and called, "Get the car." A short time later, several vehicles left the city and drove north. Clark's men were in the first car, which was followed by the car carrying Clark, Alex, and Debbie. Behind them was a private ambulance, which was transporting Sarah. The cemetery wasn't too far from Baltimore, so it didn't take them long to reach it. As soon as he got out of the car, Alex noticed the heavy atmosphere, and he could feel the dark energy around them. This was definitely the right place. He passed out some protective charms, but there were none left for him or Clark. "Mr. Ambrose, what are those?" Clark asked. "And why didn't you give one to me?" "You're extremely strong," Alex explained, "so you don't need any extra protection from the dark energy. It wouldn't dare attack you. We can both withstand it without any help." Clark nodded reluctantly. Alex strolled into the cemetery and looked around, noting how run down it was. The headstones were faded and in various states of disrepair. Several of them had fallen over, and the place was overgrown with weeds. After walking around, he pointed to a grave which had been covered with fresh earth. "Dig here," he said. "Dig?" Clark asked, stunned. "You want us to dig up a grave?" one of the men asked, his jaw dropping. "We can't go around disturbing the dead," Clark said, scowling. Alex pointed at the mound of dirt, his expression implacable. Clark knew there was no point arguing. "Dig it up," he ordered. His men didn't hesitate. They simply retrieved some shovels from the trunk of their car and got to work. Before long, it became obvious that this was no ordinary grave. Instead of a coffin, they found a hexagonal box, which was the wrong size and not shaped to house the body. Something else was buried there. The cemetery was very old, and yet the box was of much more recent construction and bore no signs of decay. Curious, they opened the box and looked inside. Instead of a skeleton, they found several scrolls written in an unfamiliar language. "Oh!" Debbie exclaimed, pointing at something. "What is that?" She shuddered and walked back to the car, not wanting to look any closer at it.